authority is probably the main theme for the whole Holo class. It has to do with our relationship with ourselves in this universe, whereby we are creations that have been given the task of creating themselves, which is very hit and miss for the first 100,000 years or so. Right? We're starting to get the hang of it a bit. We're starting to be able to notice the connection between our vibrations, our consciousness, our energy, our intention, and events that go on in the so-called exterior or outside world. We're just starting to get the hang of that. There's always been a mystic or an adept here and there, yeah, all over the place, I'm sure, in every century of being human, but this is the first time that, as far as we know, I mean, I'm leaving out things like Atlantis and Lemuria because I just don't know. This is the first time this starts to be available for regular folks. Leslie, how did you describe this? Deliciously weird. Deliciously weird. What we have been doing is really deliciously weird. That's such a wonderful description. This gets way more delicious and way more weird. Okay? So creational authority is the stance we have whereby we are working to give ourselves authority about what we experience. Now, we've been doing that. Everything we've done in Core and Masters, and everything you may have experienced in one of the smaller classes on the side, is about creational authority. This is the first time that we can just go straight right there. And it looks like this. It doesn't look like much from the outside. I'll come back to that. Consciousness meets VAKOG. This is just another way really to describe creational authority. Multidimensional belonging. We'll start with belonging with ourselves, and we'll work our way out to the universe and then come on back. Working with both spiritual paths. By both, I mean the light path and the dark path. The so-called dark spiritual path. The so-called evil path. This is a fully approved spiritual path. Whatever creates and sustains our universe for us has created two entirely approved spiritual paths. One of them involves extending validity, and one of them involves and well-being, and one of them involves absorbing it. The dark, I'll be with you, Leslie, in a moment. The dark path is the one that absorbs, so-called dark, so-called light is the one that extends. For the next X number of trillions of years, they're going to be in a ballet with each other. There is no one in this room who is working on the dark side, because if you were, you wouldn't have stayed here. Just because there's too much attention here to the well-being of apparently other people rather than your own. Occasionally we have dark side people come in, and but they don't make it through the intro workshop because it's not enough about mind control and stuff. But except John. John is John actually is on the dark side. He leaves his respirator at home, yeah. Re-imprinting using brain hemisphere differences. I mean, we do a weekend, one of the weekends is about brain stuff, especially the mainly similarities, but in where they're our hemispheres are like basically the same except where they're not, and where they're not, it's really important that they're not. The headline about brain hemispheres is that they actually, each of them, contains an intact, separate identity. Full on, straight on, complete, separate identities with their own criteria and their own IPOs and their own ways of generating the world that they experience. So anytime we're working with one person, we're working with at least two. There are ways of attending to all of the analog and accessing cues that you've gotten used to. There are ways of attending to that, paying attention to that stuff that let us chat with and interact with the identities in each hemisphere. So one of the things that's been going on in every demo that we've ever done in here is this quite invisible, here's what it looks like, non-local maneuvers of consciousness to, if you look over here, the green one over here, non-local toolbox for gentle reality creation and discreation. That's been going on all the time. When I say to someone, well, what would you like? There's a stepping onto their map. There's a momentary switch, usually. There's, for me, coming back to shift. Other people have different priorities. They stay more switched or they stay more self. But we can use consciousness to permit things to discreate. Not force them to discreate, not cause them to discreate, but permit them to discreate. And by discreate, what we mean is that they no longer are, and in a sense, never were. If you want to work with time too, I guess I have to put time on up on this list. Constellation work, hollow style. We have some, based in the gorgeous work of Bert Hellinger and foundation of that stuff, which it's really, if you want to work with people or if you want to continue to be human, it's really useful to have that foundation. This is what Michelle teaches so beautifully in her Understanding Family Constellations class. We start from there and we go out past that. There's some different presuppositions that will show you. Working with the energies of desire and resistance. One of the hollow presuppositions, by the way, there are about 4 different sets of presuppositions in this manual. One of them is labeled presuppositions. One of them is labeled things a masterful practitioner of transformational NLP does. If you look through it, you'll find a lot of interesting stuff, I think. All unwanted experience is both desired and resisted. All of it. Now, we haven't troubled ourselves with that frame very much yet. But we have it, it shows up in our NLP Marin precepts. All unwanted present state experience is better than what it replaced. This is a slightly indirect way of saying it is actually desired. There is an aspect to our consciousness that desires anything we are experiencing, and because we are human, we are programmed by Mother Nature across tens of millions of years to resist the crap out of negative Ks. We would not be here as physical beings on this planet if our far, 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 far ancestors had not resisted negative Ks. They would have said, oh, there's a big pool of lava that's flowing toward me. I wonder what that's going to be like. Okay? Poof. No progeny for that person. I almost said no prodigy either. That would be terrible also. And a lot of VA KOG stuff. But the main thing here, programmer stance, aka life stance. We will be working with it in the frame of programmer stance, but you know what? At a certain point, we just leave that word off and we're just working with life stance. Steroid level rapport with self, with other cells, and life itself. If you kind of like how much you're liking yourself now, wait till we get on the steroids.